Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review of The Expanse Season 4 on Amazon. And I really enjoyed this season. Now, the thing is, I understand that this was the first season done by Amazon, and you do notice the shift, but I have to commend it to them that they did keep most of the show's core appeal intact, being like the characters, all kind of plot interactions and everything. It is really kind of refreshing to see a show that was saved be able to retain most of what made it work so well on its new home. That's a very rare kind of feat, and it's really a testament to the kind of working abilities that they're able to do between the people that were working on The Expanse and on Amazon to kind of do that. Now, there can be some issues that pop up, mainly because we stick to mainly one area of Illis for what's going on in this season, but I don't really have that as much of like a negative for this. I understand that like previous seasons we kind of go all up around, but like in season 3, at least in the back half, we were focused mainly on the ring and having that in one kind of spot, but no kind of really big issue there. Let's see, how do we want to do this? The three main kind of things going on in this season are, of course, Illis, what is going on with Avasarala on Earth, Bobby's stuff on Mars, and then of course we get a smattering of stuff with like Drummer and Ashford in the belt. I say a smattering because it seems more that is kind of linked to what eventually goes on with Mars, and that it's more setting up stuff for the future than what's going on right now. That makes sense? So, it has been 8 months since the end of what happened with the ring gates in season 3. So, everything's kind of like switched up a little bit. We see that Holden has visited his parents and his family on Earth, and that Naomi has declined to go down to Earth because of all the different kind of treatments it would take to do that. We do see that Holden talks with Miller and is like wondering what rain tastes like and all that kind of stuff, and like, yeah, what about that ride, man? We got to get on the case kind of thing. It's like, interesting. So he's still kind of holding him to it, and we've seen that the things have kind of shifted within the system. We've got a lot of people that are essentially willing to do a gold rush kind of thing to these over 1,300 habitable systems. And Avasarala has pretty much been like, as the Secretary General, is like, slow your roll, we need to figure out what the fuck's going on here. Now, even though I am more on Avasarala's side of we need to do this kind of safely and more cautiously, because the fuck we know about the proto-molecule. I mean, most of the times that we have been in contact with this substance and everything from these builders, it's gotten people killed more times than it hasn't gotten them killed. So we see that everybody is pretty much piling up around the ring station and everything, which leads to piracy problems because they are then preying on colony ships. Which, by the way, should have been thought about. Like, if, no, granted, I understand this is a new thing and that Avasarala's got to shake these things up and kind of deal with this, but the thing is, she's got this one kind of person, Nancy Gao, who's like, we should be letting these people do these things. I'm like, yeah. Have you seen what happens when people fucking poke around with this proto-molecule shit? I mean, yes, they're habitable systems, but okay, the proto-molecule is the one that's pretty much being like, you can go to these systems. That would tell me that there is something that the proto-molecule can potentially control or has done something within those systems. Why would it be leading you there? There would have to be a specific kind of reason. We've seen previously throughout all the encounters with the proto-molecule that it has some guiding intelligence that is doing something and has some type of motives that we do not understand. So it would be like, yeah, there's all these habitable systems that people can do jobs and everything like that. I'm like, you can make things and stuff. You know what I mean? You can do different kind of programs because we get into a situation that I think would have been like, you gotta really kind of figure out. No, it's not like it undoes the plot or anything. It's just like you guys should have thought about this when you were fucking around with this. But that has created a whole group of tension, enough so for her to resign from that position and start Avasarala's whole arc of her running to be the UN Secretary General against Avasarala, which is a kind of new thing for her because she never really wanted the job and hasn't really had to run for this position previously. So it's a nice kind of thing to kind of see her going through that politically. So what happens is that we get a Belter ship that pretty much runs the blockade and is able to get onto a planet. Of course, this is Illis, and Avasarala tasks Holden with figuring out pretty much what the fuck's going on with that planet. You know what I mean? He's the only kind of expert, even though I think both me and Holden would be like, I'm not really an expert because, I mean, I've fucked with this shit, but I don't even understand half of this shit that I'm fucking doing. I mean, I'll go and see what's going on, but... So he gets sent there, as well as the Edward Israel ship run with the RCE Corporation to kind of see what's going on. They have scientists and all that kind of stuff. However, we've got Belters on there. These are considered inners. Of course, tensions are going to flare because we see that as they're attempting to land their shuttle, something goes wrong and blows up the shuttle, killing people and setting this character, Mercury, who's pretty much their head of security kind of dude, off on pretty much Moby Dick kind of style whale hunt, even though granted there are people that were involved with this going on. So we see that the Rocinante also gets there with their people. We see that Naomi wants to be onto this planet, pretty much kind of like a Belter planet, and takes all the drugs and all the precautions to try and build herself up to this. They, of course, get there, and we see that Naomi does have difficulty, and that one of the important plot points is her heart and her circulatory system can't handle it, and the drugs aren't helping her, and if she stays there too long, she's going to die. Holden, of course, has to deal with the tensions between the Belters and the RCE people as it gets fucking nuts. Amos, of course, kind of complicates matters because he gets into... How do I want to term it? Because it's actually an interesting relationship between him and Wei, who's pretty much the right-hand woman of Mercury, where they're... I would hesitate to say boyfriend and girlfriend and more say, like, fuck buddies would be the kind of best case because they fuck and they're kind of buddy-like. I mean, they really don't tell any... They don't really dive deep into each other's kind of past or anything. It's more like Amos being like, yeah? Okay, we still fucking. So I guess that's no more fucking. He's like, no? Oh, that's, cool. Because he's thinking after he's, like, dealing with certain shit that she wouldn't want to do that, but evidently her feelings are like, oh, we're kind of okay, because as Holden is trying to ascertain what's going on and to stop more bad blood between them, because Mercury's pretty much on the warpath and pretty much just looking for any excuse to kill the Belters, because he's just pretty much using this quest for justice to just start taking them out. He says, oh, just send us the people who took down the shuttle. The thing is, they find out that somebody did do something with the shuttle. We learn later on that, like, a group of Belters were pretty much going to use it to not kill anybody. At least the main Lucia chick didn't want to kill anybody, but the shuttle arrived early and it led to the spiraling of everything. Mercury kills pretty much everybody involved except Lucia, wounding her as everything starts to kind of spiral out of control. We see this one group of this swarm of kind of strange proto-molecule stuff flying around the compound and injures people, which they freak out and they are able to kind of like ascertain, okay, it has not infected anybody with the proto-molecule. That's good. But it's like, okay, what's going on? Holden eventually is called by Miller into a proto-molecule structure to essentially remove a tree root. He's like, I kind of got to get into this stuff, so I kind of need your hands. So it's really kind of funny. I didn't know what I would think about like Holden and Miller's relationship because I did not expect it to take this kind of strange AI buddy cop kind of thing in the head as they're kind of like dealing with these weird situations. But it has been one of my favorite kind of interactions and relationship pairings in this show with what they do, especially in this season. They really knocked that out of the park with this. That's one of the ones that I really fucking enjoyed. Also, there's other ones too, but like that central core of like seeing what's going on here is like, oh yeah, I always got excited when we got into this. So Holden is able to take out the root, things start shifting out, and he's able to kind of like get out with Alex's help as things start kind of going strange. Lightning pretty much starts moving in a strange kind of pattern. Even the Edward Israel is able to kind of ascertain that it's moving in a pattern. And it hits the settlement and fries out some generators. Of course, that's where we get some more tension because the RCE people are like, you Belters ain't getting any of our shit. And Amos is like, I'm just going to fix some shit, and I'm going to take some shit if I got to fucking do that. He also has a pretty cool kind of like scene with Mertry where he's pretty much like, yeah, we're both killers, but you fucking enjoy it. You get off on it. He's like, oh, well, we'll have to see who wins out. If it comes to that, it's like, oh, I'm free right now. And see, that's the thing. People might think that Amos's kind of single-mindedness and bluntness is kind of a disadvantage, and in certain situations it would be. But the thing is, he's ready to go whenever. He is always in on mode with those kind of situations. Whenever he's put somewhere, he's ready to go and like knock the fuck out people. And Mercury was like, okay, he's definitely one that I've got to watch on this. So they're kind of dealing with that and dealing with the shit that pretty much turning on the protomolecule shit entails. Now, granted, Holden's just trying to figure out what this shit will do and what's going on with this planet. Because, like, if those swarms and things are going to be coming in, it's going to be kind of plaguing havoc. And, by the way, the Belters mainly wanted their own kind of planet, and they were able to mine lithium here. Now, I need to talk about that situation because we see a lot of stuff with Ashford and Drummer dealing with the inners and what Belter culture is and what it's kind of becoming. And it's really kind of weird because these Belters are like, screw the inners, but we want our own kind of planet kind of thing. It's like, but then you'll eventually become those inners, even though you've got to like fight with the gravity drugs and everything. And it's just like, oh, you didn't even kind of ascertain what's going on with this planet. You just fucking, right? I understand desperation, but this is like sticking your finger in a light socket, being like, and not doing the research of what that'll do to you, or being like somebody's like, you know what, man, don't fuck a pineapple, and then someone's like, I'm gonna do it anyway, and then are like, oh god, that kind of burns, you know? Because they didn't ascertain if there was any kind of organism. Never mind the fact that the Belters had to deal with the gravity. That's one of the big kind of things like, huh. But never mind the fact that we don't know what the ecosystem's like. We don't know what kind of animals are even in this ecosystem, how we'd interact with them, how, I don't know, even digging up and mining for shit would affect the fucking environment. Then on top of the fact that you got proto-fucking molecule structures on this bitch that you don't even know if it could wake up at like the slightest mouse fart. Or mouse fart adjacent, because we don't know if mice exist on this planet, but if you accidentally bring a mouse onto this motherfucking planet, and it farts, and it turns everything into a fucking hell zone. Because we see as the proto-molecule kind of Miller, I have to make that distinction as we start going through this, is trying to figure out what's going on or doing stuff with this planet, because the scientist for the RCE, okay, is able to ascertain that those structures are like 1.5 billion years old. That's even with what we have been able to build on Earth, if you are able to build a structure that is able to survive for 1.5 billion years, holy fucking shit. And then, what does it do? Because, of course, the lightning strikes, and what it's doing is, of course, I mean, like, what's going on with that? Okay, he's like, can we look at this structure kind of thing? He's like, yeah, sure. It's like, Alden, are you already there? And, of course, he hasn't told anybody about what's going on, but they kind of need to as shit starts going down. The thing is, it starts going to the next morning. They see another protomolecule structure starts, like, spinning up and is, like, going to hit the settlement. And Holden authorizes a missile strike from the Rocinante to take it out, so that way it saves the structure, the settlement. That kind of goes weird, and then they start seeing that the lightning strike stopped at a certain chain of islands. Edward Israel's like, stuff's kind of going a little bit weird there. And the thing is, Holden is able to, he's talking, of course, with Naomi and trying to figure out kind of what he needs to do, and she's like, well, listen, yeah, there's a lot of people to blame because Holden feels like it's his fault because he essentially went in and kind of fucked around with shit. I'm like, to be fair, you were going to need to fuck around with that shit anyway to figure out what it was going to do. These motherfuckers were the dumbasses that made their choice to be like, I'm going to sit on this planet that I don't know fuck all about and see if it'll bite me in the ass. Spoiler alert, it bit him in the ass. But Naomi is able to be like, okay, all these people are at fault for everything. These Belters, they're not children. Tell them the truth, let them make their decision. So if they're like, okay, if you fuck a pineapple, it's gonna burn, and they decide to fuck the pineapple, you told them, and they made their choice, and that's on them then. They fucked the pineapple. So he starts to tell them what's going on, and the Belters are pretty much trying to blame it on his ass, and I'm like, no. And, of course, he then gets information that one of the island chains was pretty much acting like a reactor and fucking exploded, and then they got, like, winds and tsunami coming after their asses, like, shit. Never mind the fact that this then initiates a field of the moons that make like a ring, and it stops fusion. So their ships then lose power. The Barbapicola, the Belter ship that's got all the lithium on it, which they're trying to save. Now granted, I understand trying to save it, but I'm like, this is a life or death thing. You can't fucking sell a chunk of shit if you're dead. Fuck it off and get the fuck out. But hey, that's me. I don't want to get fucking impregnated by an alien and fucking chest burster shit. Because that is the best, worst case scenario. Because it starts getting even worse than that. So they've got fucking floodwaters that are coming that's going to take like a third of the fucking continent that they're on. And they're like, alright, and that field that has stopped the fusion has pretty much, how do I put it? Like, they tried to send a shuttle down and it fucking disappeared. I don't mean that it, like, turned invisible or got sent to another dimension. It fucking, like, dusted, kind of Thanos snapped like the motherfucker. And they're like, oh, we can't put anybody down. So, what do? They pretty much blow themselves a hole into the protomolecule structure and try and get everybody in there and get all their kind of food and everything. Mercury's like, yeah, we don't have enough food for this. I'm going to have to murder some more Belters. Yeah. It's a little bit more... It's not as cartoony as that. But kind of on that level of, like, pretty much trying to justify his next kind of murder spree. He is an interesting character because it's like, alright. Because at first you're like, alright, I understand he wants justice, but then he pretty much shoots a dude who makes more of a vague threat than active being like, I'm going to do this. He, like, takes one and boom. He pretty much flushes them out the other conspirators and just boom, no trial, fucking doing whatever. Kind of frontier end shit. So that gets to them, and right before that starts to happen, okay, it starts to find out that something is going on with people's eyeballs. Why is that important? Because they get in there and she finds out that there's some kind of microorganism that's pretty much turning everybody blind, and it's like green and shit, and it's like, well, it's kind of fucked. However, the only person this isn't affecting is Holden. Now, granted, I pretty much called that it was because of his anti-cancer medicine, and it is interesting, but I'm like almost by the end of it screaming at the screen, it's gotta be the cancer medicine! And that's not a bad thing on the show. I understand that they're trying to figure out all these things, all this shit's going on at once, so it's not like I blame them or that it's a plot convenience or that the plot's demanding that they're that fucking dumb, but it's like, and it starts bringing up like, yeah, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. And of course, while this is all going on, Holden has not been in contact with Miller, so all this weird fucking shit's happening. He's like, what the fuck's going on? But he is able to ascertain, like, he does this crazy ass eye poking thing, which was very reminiscent of Dead Space to me, too specifically. And of course, they find that out and they're able to fix everything. This, of course, also leads to, like, Amos has been having, of course, his issues with Way because she's more siding with Mercury than anything. But Amos pretty much loses his vision, and it takes him too far back to what's going on. And, like, what had happened in his past, and he pretty much was going to go take himself out as he wanted. Oh, and before this was going on, we also did get a check-in with Clarissa, and evidently Amos and Clarissa had an interesting kind of thing where he pretty much gave her an out, but she didn't take it, instead kind of thanked him, and she's pretty much going to be in prison for the rest of her life. That's not important for this, but when you're talking about Amos, there's a lot of kind of cool stuff going on, because he's doing this, and this is around the point that they also had slugs that were secreting a neurotoxin that would paralyze and kill people, because one of the people was near one of the water parts, and he was on, like, water duty, and he had died, and one of his friends was like, you killed my friend! It's like, no, he didn't! And he was, like, drowning him, but there was, like, slugs in there. He's like, ugh! And then fucking dies. It's like, oh, shit. So we got people who are going blind. We got slugs that could kill people, and everybody's like, ah, shit. Holden's trying to figure out what's going on. It's like, while he's trying to figure that stuff out, Naomi and Alex and Lucia are up and trying to figure out, they make a tether to get the Barbapicola kind of up higher in orbit, while Mercury is even trying to be like, you know what, take out the Rocinante and the Barbapicola, fuck them people, because Holden was also going to help strengthen try and do his best to have the Belter claim recognized and respected on that planet. Because, fuck, granted, people need to follow rules, but it wasn't like it was in anybody's jurisdiction. I mean, you get there and you're, like, able to fucking hold it, you know? But then there's people who are like, fuck that shit, you already did the work for me, I'm not gonna push you off, you motherfuckers. Because, honestly, how this should have kind of gone down expedition-wise is Avasarala should have pretty much started a spin-up program for the colonists and not have them waiting to be pirate bait. And decided to be like, okay, what we should do is have the Belters be, in our little kind of truce faction, have the Belters handle every kind of thing with, like, stations, have the Inners kind of be their kind of tank kind of things. I'm going with, like, RPG kind of things. The Belters would be supports on the stations with building stations so they can observe what's going on. Have the Inners go down, since they're usually more versed with dealing with gravity situations, and kind of see what's going on, gather more intel, figure out what's going on, and then do stuff that way. That would have been kind of a smarter, kind of more Star Trek-y kind of way. But of course, everybody kind of got their dick mode kind of on, and wants to really fuck that pineapple, and this is kind of the fallout that occurs. And that'll become important as we're dealing with the other kind of parts of the season. This is like the most kind of cool part that I really enjoyed. So they pretty much get everybody the drugs. They've got the ability to manufacture the cancer drugs to pretty much make it so that way the eyes are not as hospitable environment for the microbes. That's all getting out. Amos really was thankful to Holden. He's like, I didn't think you'd do it, but yeah. He's like, hey, you could just say that I took you to fight. He's like, you could say whatever you want. Amos doesn't give a shit. He's got his eyes back and everything, and his captain came through for him. Just like Amos has come through for the captain when it's needed. It's like, and it's really kind of cool to see that going on. And of course, we've seen that Holden has been having kind of like freak out moments where it's like, oh, it seems like something's kind of there, and you're like, okay, what's going on? And then we see that Miller is able to kind of like pop back up. Now this is after Holden kind of goes out and kind of checks what's going on with the kind of I think it's after that point. At one point, Holden does go out to check that the water is receded enough for the for somebody to kind of like come and get them. And it's really kind of cool because it's the same area that we'd seen in season 3 where Holden was having that kind of vision of other planets, and you see Holden naked and Miller talking about needing a ride. I thought that was a really kind of cool callback to kind of see that, because you needed that kind of flood thing, and to see that, like, oh, that's kind of interesting. Wonder if that means that this AI has some kind of predictive model or whatnot for future events that it's attempting to see. Now, granted, events might not go out the same kind of ways that this AI would be able to predict, but it's kind of cool to kind of see that kind of, even if it's just a callback that doesn't really mean anything, it was really kind of cool to see that. But we see that Miller's trying to talk to him, and then we see that Miller's kind of freaking the fuck out. You're like, what the fuck's going on with this? Because we had seen when he was removing the root that Miller was talking about how he's got, oh, it'd be nice to just have one voice in your head because he can hear all the people in Arrow. So he's like, yeah, well, maybe we figure this shit out. We all get to sleep. And you really feel for Miller on that. And you even feel for Miller again, because after we see that part, because that's like one fucking hell of a cliffhanger after an episode, we kind of get Miller's point of view as he's been going through and going into all the different kind of proto-molecule systems, and then we get to Holden trying to figure out what's going on with him, and we see two distinct Millers. One in his Sarah Station kind of get up with the fedora hat on, and then one where he doesn't have the hat on, and he's more acting like the Miller that we've seen. And this becomes important because evidently the investigator part is essentially the AI protomolecule kind of version of a Miller. And then Miller got to a part of whatever system is there that the protomolecule backed out of, because like, that ain't good. That ain't good. Like some kind of weapon or some kind of thing that was used by the enemy race that the builders were fighting. And he was able to kind of wrestle control back, and we see these like, hey, we kind of have to do that and turn off all this shit to get everybody to be saved. Because the Edward Israel has the security people pretty much were shooting a bomb shuttle at the Rocinante to kill the Rocinante and the Barbapicola, and Alex had to deal with that, and of course he had to get a little bit of inventive to keep the Barbapicola from going too far down into the atmosphere, using the railgun that was pretty much a thruster kind of thing. That was kind of cool to see. Naomi also had to save Lucia from her kind of shit, as her daughter was helping out on the Barbapicola. There was that whole kind of sub-story of like Lucia having all the kind of different issues with her family because she pretty much did something that screwed up a lot of the shit. She was involved with the whole thing with the shuttle, and her daughter wanted to go off to university and lead the family, even though Lucia was trying to use this to secure their future. So let her do the kind of stuff. Their relationship gets repaired as they're like working together to pretty much make sure that they all don't die. But they're doing all that kind of stuff up there, and the thing is, it wouldn't matter unless they're able to get fusion to work again. And the thing is, it doesn't get too deep into that kind of technology of like, wow, they're able to make a field that stops fusion. That's a big fucking thing. But Miller is like, we need to go down there, and he's kind of like fighting off the AI protomolecule as they're doing their stuff, and he's Holden, of course, hasn't slept for days, but he's able to kind of like get through everything. Okie kind of like follows him a little bit to kind of see what's going on, and Miller's like, okay, you tired or what? And I was like, yeah, I've been up for 3 days. Like, well, we need to get this done because every time I disappear, I'm ripped apart and put back together, and I think there's a little less of me every time. And it's like, Jesus, Miller is ripped apart and put back together every fucking time. You just feel for this dude. He's like, I'm trying to help you guys, and I just want to get us to sleep, man. Get them put to rest and stop these things because we don't know what they fucking want. He's off of the boss man, as he called him, with the proto-molecule ones. So he's able to, like, dig deeper into the structure and is able to take him into a place. Now, Okie did pop up, but Holden's like, listen, he only pops up when I'm pretty much alone, so that's why I can't have you with me. And Holden goes down this tube thing, is able to catch some Z's, but he gets down, they get through. Of course, Mercury enlists Way, is like pretty much into like pretty much a money plot. We're owed all this kind of shit. We'll get a lot of money off of this. Let's screw the Belters and let's take out Holden and all this shit. You handle Amos, all that. Of course, they go after Holden to take care of his ass. Amos is pretty much appraised of the situation by Alex and all of them. He's like, fuck this noise. Him and Okie decide to go after them then to stop them from fucking up Holden. Holden's able to find what he terms the eye of an angry god, and it's this weird kind of fucking thing because Miller can't see it because it's not where the protomolecule is. But he's like, alright, cool. Let's kind of do this. He's like, alright, I should be able to do this, shut it down. I don't know what the locals are going to do. I don't know what's going to happen, but hopefully this should deal with it and I'll be kind of done. And he's able to find this kind of proto-molecule kind of thing that should be ambulatory, able to be moved, and he's going to try and use that walking into the thing to set it off. And one of the things is that Holden tries to tell him what rain tastes like. It's just water. It tastes like nothing. Because he talked about it in the beginning of the season, he always wanted to know what rain tastes like. And that just goes to show their relationship and also why I love Holden as a character. He always tries to do the right thing. He might not always do it, but whenever he fucks up, he owns it and tries to fix it. And granted, shit just rolls and spirals out of control a lot, but he tries to do it, and he tries to be that friend because Miller's trying to do something very important and stop this and save their lives. Granted, Miller does get something out of it too, but people don't usually do that much, and to see that work like that works pretty well. So Mercury and Wayne decide to like hold off. They understand that Amos would be coming because Amos sent her a message to be like, listen, I'm coming after Mercury, don't be there when I'm there. And they decide to wait for him. Okie pretty much is able to dodge the fire. Amos is like, I ain't doing this. She tries to appeal with the money kind of thing. He says, I told you I'd never lie to you. And he shoots her and kills her. It sucks, but that's Amos as a character. Somebody's fucking with his family, and they were just fuck buddies. Granted, he probably felt other kind of feelings for her, but he was able to black and white make that decision of she's in the way, I gotta go through her. Of course, Mercury then kind of like fucks up Amos a lot, like shooting off some of his fingers, but Oakley is able to kind of get there and tell Holden what's going on. Of course, Holden was supposed to guide Miller into the vortex kind of thing, but he's like, listen, I gotta deal with this. He goes out and has his confrontation with Mercury as Okie helps Miller. Miller's like, who the fuck are you? He's like, I'm a doctor. I'm here. Holden's got to go deal with some shit. He's like, fine, send me through. And this is important because Okie expressed jealousy at what Holden is going through. I'm like, what? Granted, it is an interesting perspective to understand and kind of have a link into what's going on with this ancient alien culture, right? She's like, oh, scientists would kill for this. I'm like, he's got a dude in his head that like pops up whenever and tells him to do weird shit that usually happens and then fucking kills people. And then he has to fucking run around and try and figure out how to fucking stop that shit. Granted, it sounds kind of repetitive when you say it like that, but the thing is, that's the basic premise, and how it's executed and how it's done. That's the spice, baby. And seeing him have to go through, like, God damn it. Of course, she then goes through it, and she's able to help Miller go through it. She falls through the field, and it's like, welcome to the club, baby. Let's see how you like it, because we don't get the complete ramifications of what it kind of entails. But we see While that's going on, Holden has his confrontation with Murtry, and Murtry's pretty much like, "Oh, you're the dude who comes after I like set up the post office kind of the difference between civilization and the frontier kind of shit." And Holden's like, "I ain't buying that shit." And they both shoot each other. He gets winged on the throat, and Murtry, Holden's not going for the kill. He's like, "Nope, you're going to trial, bitch. Civilized that way." Of course, everything starts going kind of nutty doodah, and everything gets shut down. The field gets shut down, and we see that Miller's gone. And Miller also told Holden that there's some blue goo on the ship. It's like, thank you for telling him about that, so that we can get rid of it before everything goes on. It's like, all right, let's see here. She checks on Okiye. He checks on Okiye, and that field is still there. So whatever that is, it's different. She felt some kind of presence as well, kind of similar to what Holden has been feeling going through the rings. So they're connected on that. So I'll have to see kind of what's going on. This, of course, would be an archaeological find to figure out what's going on, even though they kind of essentially EMP'd the whole kind of thing. I'm not going to say it's completely destroyed because we don't know exactly what this thing fucking did. We don't know if we'll get all of what this thing fucking did. So that's all kind of set off. Lucia is presumed dead, so that way she gets her second chance because she got wounded to a point that she was going to let herself die, but Alex and Naomi were able to save her. Naomi then, of course, is trying to talk her and like, yeah, I talked about like people making their own decisions, but I'm like, you have to. I had all this guilt from what I did with Marco Inaros, and we get that whole kind of spiel because he's an important OPA terrorist dude that factors in with Ashford and Drummer. And of course, she didn't she trusted him, he fucked her over, pretty much murdered people, and she's carried that ever since, but we've seen her fixing that kind of stuff, and she also wants to find her son. Afterwards, they kind of do all that kind of stuff. She calls in the favor with Fred Johnson and like, I want to find my son. Which we do see in the season. Alright, let's see here. So that kind of whole situation's done. Avasarala does get the update of what's going on, and this doesn't really help. Hey, that actually works to really dovetail into the rest of the kind of explanations. Well, everything kind of gets set up. They're able to take the blue goo. Holden gives some final words and says goodbye to his brother Miller. I like that he called him a brother. Put him in a torpedo. And cool, they shot him into Ilyssa's son. It's kind of cool to think about that he had a funeral like that. But then they, of course, give their update to Avasarala, and this kind of fucks over her re-election chances. Now, granted, she has had a whole kind of spiel of what's going on. She has great kind of things, talking about how Nancy Gow is pretty much running on the platform and giving everybody a pony and a blowjob. She has some fucking amazing lines in this, and she's kind of let off the chain with her kind of whole dialogue. And granted, they did recast her husband Arjun, but I really liked his character because he acted as a foil and kind of her conscious for what's going on. She, of course, is trying to say and be as cautious as possible, but of course she starts to have to deal with all these different kind of things going on. The Sojourner was taken by OPA terrorists, Marco Inaros, and was sent to pretty much be like a bullet and shot at Earth, and she decides to make the choice of blowing it up. Tactical information, that was the best kind of choice. That was important because she was having a debate that she was trying to pretty much hit Nancy Gow for corruption and nepotism with how the system is. Of course, she was able to flip it, and it starts like tacking at her polling numbers, and we see that Avasarala is not that well equipped to handle these kind of situations. It's kind of interesting because, granted, she's an important player, and the thing is to see her kind of, she hasn't had to run for these kind of things before, and that is a weakness that kind of undoes her here. She does her best, but it doesn't quite do well enough. She also had a state dinner kind of thing where she invited Bobby on Mars, and that's important because it hooks up with Bobby's stuff on Mars, but she was pretty much trying to use Bobby as a political kind of tool kind of thing. She does offer her a job, but Bobby's like, I'm not doing that right at the moment. Let's see, let's finish off Avasarala's stuff first, because then we can dovetail back in. the thing is, after that, she then gets more word of the opiate terrorist, Marco Naras, and she gets into a situation where they have this ship, and they have reliable intel that they pretty much got from the OPA that Marco Naras is on there. So their two options is nuke the ship or disable it, send in a Marines team, and try to apprehend Marco Naras. It's more played off that she did this more as a political stunt so that way she could have Marco on trial. But I would have made that decision morally anyway because I'm not going to murder people just to see what's going on and on the hopes that I would take out a terrorist. Because if you don't take them out, you would then just martyred that whole thing, made you look like the evil empire, and then you just rally them more to their cause. Which I think was Marco's intention anyway. Because he was still able to spin it that way, because the general's like, alright, here's our stuff. They send in the Marines, they're unable to find Marco, and then the ship gets blown up, and the Belters, like one of the Belters is able to get off the transmission, pretty much saying that they're being murdered by Earth. This, of course, tanks their ship more, gives more legitimacy to like Nancy Gao's kind of thinking as a new kind of leader. Of course, it doesn't work. It works even better in her favor once everything that's going on Illis gets back and worked out. Oh, everybody worked together and avert a disaster. So, yeah, just go out and do whatever the fuck you want. No, don't fuck the pineapple. God damn it. I don't know why I had the metaphor of fucking a pineapple, but I'm rolling with it. So, we see that Abasarala does this nice eulogy for the Marines that were killed. She had also had the general resign his commission because he didn't like her using it as a political stunt. Now, at that point, I didn't really see her using it as a political stunt until we got here, and she pretty much used her dead son as well, because she went off the fly and off the cuff, talking about, like, I know you want to hate someone and blame someone, but you know what? I failed. It's on me. And it still doesn't kind of help her, and it even kind of hurts her even more, because Arjun's like, you used our dead son. Fuck you kind of thing. Well, he does it politely. Then, of course, we get through the whole kind of the whole election, and she loses. And she, of course, leaves a message for Nancy Gao, pretty much being like, I think you're wrong, but I hope you're not. And, of course, that then links back up to Bobby's as well. Bobby essentially almost has kind of like a similar kind of experience on Mars that we had in the beginning, where she pretty much is treated as a disgraced Martian and is pretty much deconstructing different kind of warships, because evidently Mars has changed so much because they're like, oh, there's all these habitable worlds. Why the fuck should we terraform? I'm like, are you fucking stupid? What if those worlds may be deemed habitable, but you would have to kind of change certain things to make sure that they're livable for you? You should fucking get that shit done and make sure that your terraforming technology is on point to make sure that you don't get fucked over. It's really, I'm not that I'm saying that it's unbelievable that Mars would totally be like, you know what? Fuck terraforming. Let's solve this shit and fucking go off. I'm like, you need scientists to figure that shit out. Terraforming is an important technology for any spacefaring race, and if any fuckhead tries to tell you otherwise, tell him to go fuck a pineapple with a goat. And I'm just like, oh god. And you just see all these people pretty much trying to go out for themselves. Like, Martian, it's really kind of, I like what they attempted to do. Well, not attempted, they did do it. Showing that if a society's main goal, because Mars's goal was pretty much ramp themselves up and terraform and turn that into a garden world, what happens if you take that goal away? Everybody's like, fuck this shit, and starts like stealing shit and trying to get their own stuff out, because she pretty much gets her nephew? Aunt, niece's nephew? Yeah. Brother's son. Yeah. Nephew. Gets into like this gang pretty much making the focus drugs, which I should have brought up previously, but like it was interesting seeing the focus drugs used on her to figure out what was going on with the whole stuff on Ganymede. But she kind of like takes their asses out, but of course that leads to the gang people to be like, yeah, we got your nephew. Shit. Alright, what do you want me to do? Then she gets put with this Eastside dude. He's like, just let us get some military shit. It's like, alright, fine. not fucking doing this shit again. Of course, she feels horrible about this. Talks to her supervisor. Supervisor's like, hey, can you do it again? Because I want to kind of like get in on that. Like, no, I don't want to do that. She quits. Of course, pretty much gets like arrested, and we find out that the East Side dude is a Martian police officer. He pretty much ropes her into doing stuff. She gets into a relationship with a dude, and they're pretty much like talking about like what's going on with Mars. Of course, you got all these veterans that are now unemployed, and they're not being integrated into working society, and it goes with that. You lose that kind of goal. Like the Martian leadership really gets screwed over, and that's kind of like my whole thing with this. You kind of needed more to see like what the Martian leadership is doing, and if they're trying to do anything with this. You kind of needed a little bit more of that Martian leadership to see what's going on and how that's kind of affecting society, because you're like, we don't get anybody except like Ava Sarala in charge of the UN. We needed her kind of counterpoint to see them kind of dealing with this and what the ring world's changing with that and how they needed to do that. Because a militaristic society like we've seen as the Martians tends to go kind of like weird depending upon how their goals change. Because they were pretty much like in a Cold War kind of building up their armaments, building up their tech to pretty much be able to handle any kind of threat that comes at them while building up their terraforming stuff. Bobby's nephew pretty much tries to go into terraforming to keep doing that kind of stuff anyway. Well, Bobby pretty much just does essentially these consulting things. The one dude that she kind of gets with decides to get a mining job on Europa and asks her to come with him, and she's like, I'm not giving it, like, Mars is dying kind of shit. And it's like, I go the kind of because it kind of feels like that. I'm like, okay, Bobby, what are you trying to do? And of course, she had the offer from Ava Saral and said no. But she starts getting kind of leery of what's going on with East Side, and there's this one kind of big score that pops up. It's like, it's too good to be true. And we find out that they're kind of linking up with the Belters. And like, it's like, opportunities make strange bedfellows here. And the Belters pretty much double cross East Side, kill him. He wanted to score so that way him and his family could go to like a ring world or whatnot. But he dies. The only one that survives is this one chick that Bobby pretty much like was like, fuck you, but they kind of have a nice understanding at the end, and we'll kind of have to see if she kind of pops back up. And then of course she's like, I accept your offer, Ava Sarala, and she's like, you got pretty piss poor fucking timing, kid. As she's like, shit. So we'll have to see if they kind of work together and how that would kind of work out next season. So that's that. Ellis, Avi, Bobby, Ashford and Drummer are pretty much dealing with like the fallout of what happened with the rings. The Behemoth is now called Medina Station. Ashford is pretty much trying to figure out and unify kind of like the disparate kind of groups of the OPA, and of course dealing with Marco Inaros, who's really kind of lucky and weird. Yeah, he doesn't get into plot demands territory, but a lot of his shit works out a lot better than it should. And I say kind of plot convenience and kind of lucky instead of plot demands because I reserve the criticism of plot demands for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. kind of shenanigans, Game of Thrones ending scenario, and Supernatural. What I mean by plot demands is that essentially you have to destroy a character and make them like either stupid or completely out of character for a certain plot thing to work. The plot demands that this happens, so all these things happen to have that occur. That's a bad thing. Now, if a plot is done correctly and characters help to move and facilitate this plot, which is usually what the Expanse does, we're good. It's not like, oh, the plot would have demanded that happen. Not exactly. If it's got to force something or force characters to do really weird fucking shit that they really wouldn't and you don't have a good explanation for, that kind of goes on. But he gets really lucky because he gets caught by him first and pretty much was going to get sentenced to death, but he's able to pretty much bullshit his way to get two of the factions to let him live. Ashford's like, fuck the bitch. But Drummer's like, I had to let him live. We'll pretty much let him hang himself. This dude is pretty much being like, no, okay, fine then. You think this piece will work? No, fuck it. I'll stay. I'll stop doing my shit. You'll get all the shit from the Sojourner, and I will only break it when the inners break it. Spoiler alert, he fucking doesn't give a shit about that. He's fucking just doing all this kind of shit to begin with. And of course, since the whole shit happened with the UN trying to take that one ship that he was on and it blowing up, that creates kind of chaos with the OPA. Ashford's like, I'm going to go on a one-man hunt and take this dude out. Fred Johnson, of course, goes there. He's the one that, like, facilitated and gave the UN the information. Drummer's like, I don't fucking care about this shit. She actually punches him. I'm like, yes. And she's done. She quits as the head of the Medina station. And Drummer and Ashford have a nice kind of conversation about what they need to do for the OPA's future. Ashford has taken more of a long view of, like, not using violence. He's like, peace. We see him also, he had, like, a baby, like a child, and that was fucking adorable. And it was kind of cool to get more of that kind of information in. But he's going to do this one violent kind of thing to stop this stupid motherfucker because he's throwing shit at Earth to destroy Earth, pretty much. We find that he has gotten stealth at pretty much the end of the season, we see he's got stealth technology that he is spraying on asteroids to essentially just be the asshole kid that throws rocks at windows, but in this case, it's big fucking rocks in the windows Earth. Which makes no goddamn sense, because yes, you have over 1,300 habitable planets, but you don't know what the fuck is on any of those planets and how any people will react to whatever the fuck is on those planets. So your idea is to fucking kill Earth, which would be your last fallback fucking position, because most people would be okay going on there. Barring, of course, the gravity, I got that, but I'm talking about most ecosystem-wise, you put a human on Earth, okay, cool. So it's like, okay, you kill that, and you can't live on any of the other planets. Well, the proto-molecule's like, guess what, baby? The pineapple's fucking back. You are screwed. He's just a nihilistic bitch. And it's just like, you're not going to get power. You're not going to get what you want. You're going to fuck over everybody else. It's like, I'm waiting for that sack tap moment. And Ashford almost gets him, too. He has this cool cut of way where he, like, gets in that ship, takes out some of his people. He does lose his people. He's got Marco dead to rights, but of course, his son Philip comes in like, hey, screw you. And Ashford does record the conversation and sends it out to somebody. And it really sucks because Drummer had bought this, like, alcohol that they were going to drink when he had caught Marco or killed him. And the thing is, Drummer was offered to be the XO, but she's like, no, I'm going to do something else. So I am really intrigued to see what Drummer would do, because I love their relationship, and I want to see how she takes the news that Ashford is sent out. And he fucking goes like a boss. He's like, I ain't going to fucking talk to you. I ain't going to waste your breath. Turns around, starts singing, goes out the airlock. I'm like, why not like a boss, motherfucker? Yeah. Then, of course, it's shown that they spray paint those asteroids and send them on, it goes on like 8 kind of trajectories to like hit Earth, because the Sojourner was pretty much testing their asteroid defense systems. By the way, if you are in the future and you are a spacefaring race and you know the vulnerability of a planet and you don't have like top tier fucking anti-asteroid shit, you a numbnut or a fucknut or both, and the pineapple is coming for your ass. Ooh. So I will have to see what's going on with Marco, because he has become a sore point for me at this point, because I'm like, what the fuck's going on here? And I don't know. We'll have to see kind of how he is handled in season 5. It's kind of crazy that I've gotten this caught up, but overall I enjoyed this season. The part that I really liked the most was Illis and dealing with Avasarala. Bobby's was kind of like, eh, and I like the OPA stuff except for like Marco. There needed to be some kind of like finagling with him to make it work a little bit better, because he seems more lucky and a dumbass teenager throwing shit than anything at this point. But granted, if you look into it, you could pretty much get into like, hey, you got like weird teenage issues you haven't fucking resolved. But overall, it was still enjoyable, and it's still like one of my favorite shows now because of what's going on. I'm like, good first season from Amazon. Let's see kind of how this goes with season 5, and I've been hearing good things of season 5, so I'm excited to get through that. Yeah. I think those are the major points. If I missed anything, talk to me in the comments below, because I've got various other things that I could probably expound upon, because I've got my certain time limits with what I can talk with, and granted, I could probably talk for hours on this shit, like a stream or something. Hell, I might do that. I might. No, we won't become a completely exclusive Expanse channel, but I might dive into deeper kind of stuff or other kind of lore things, which I was going to do with Game of Thrones before thunderously shard itself into infinity. God, I hope this show doesn't do that. I can't fucking take that again. I can't fucking take that again. I don't think that'll happen, but I'm going to enjoy it for what it is right now. So those are my opinions on this season. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.